and welcome to our show program on Let's Fight Depression Together. I'm your host, and on board we have a guest who will assist in tackling this disorder. Welcome and introduce yourself before we start this session.
Okay, my name is Jonathan, and I'm glad that I could join this conversation. Hope that it will help you a great deal as we tackle on depression and how we can fight this kind of monster.
Okay, to start with, what's the overview of depression?
With a layman understanding and knowledge of depression, depression can just be defined briefly as the lack of happiness, or you're being sad, or the lack of morale of a period of, let's say, at least 2 weeks na kwenda mbele. So that's what we can term basically with a layman understanding what depression can all mean. It is just some form of stress which has prolonged for quite some time.
So, stress and depression, the two interlinked together.
They are intertwined because you can't have depression if you have got no stress. So
Okay.
stress bears or mothers depression.
And in depression, what are the types? Which stages, the phases which one follows for him or her to say that is fully depressed?
Okay, there are several ways, or there are several types of depression depending on the nature of depression and the time that someone has been hooked into depression. And we also have different ways through which one can confirm or affirm that they have depression. For example, we have major depression. Major depression is mostly found people in America, the ones that have been cited to have been having this problem, with 16.2 million people in America having this disorder. You can have your dream car, your dream job, and everything is running well, but you still have some mental or psychological challenges. That one has got no relationship with what someone is missing, because someone can get depressed because of lack of basic necessities in life, like food, clothing, and etc. But major depression is not has no connection with someone lacking something. So that's why we have said that in America, 16.2 million people are suffering from this kind of disorder. We also have situational depression, as the the word introduces itself is situational, comes from the word situation. This comes, for example, when someone loses a close friend or a family member, they get into some form of depression because they love that person. If, for example, you have lost your mommy, your daddy, your brother, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you get into some form of prolonged stress. So that we call situational or depression. The third one is permanent depression, and this one comes. Let's say someone has been in prolonged depression for at least 2 or more years. We term that person to be suffering from permanent depression, and that one has very dire consequences. It can leave someone committing suicide and such kind of problems. We also have seasonal depression. This one comes over a period of time. Let's say some certain period of time, let's say in a year, and it's mostly witnessed during the winter when it's very cold. Let's say in the Western countries or in Europe, they majorly experience this kind of depression because during winter, psychologically, people are mentally disturbed, so they get into a depression, and this one comes like a certain period of the year. That's why we're calling it seasonal depression. Those are just some of the major types of depression that we're handling today.
Okay, for instance, in our country, Kenya, what does statistics have to say about depression?
Okay, thank you. Well, let's start first of all for with globally what statistics are putting about depression. Because according to the World Health Organization, 322.2 million people are globally suffering from depression. And out of the 322 million people, 29.2 million people are from Africa. And in the age bracket is that the young people between the age of 12 and 17 years, we have 4% of them in the country in Kenya suffering from depression. Where in the age bracket of 17 years to 24 years, we have 9% of them suffering from depression. So mostly find that depression has shifted from the old people to the young people. See that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and how can one realize that he or she is affected by depression?
Okay, thank you. Although depression in the young people or in teens can be sometimes hard to to realize that they are suffering from depression, because you find that the teenagers, let's say the young girls and boys, Sometimes they become emotional. That's their way of growing. When they are growing up, they become emotional. So it's
So you can't differentiate if one is depressed or
yeah,
a
for
form
the
of stress.
for the young people, it's a bit hard to figure out whether they are depressed or not. But there are some features, or there are some ways, or there are some characteristics that someone can present, and you realize that this person is somehow depressed. Like for
For
example,
instance,
in teenagers, people they what they are, let's say they have been doing something for leisure, like they are going swimming, they have been playing. They drastically stop what they have been doing for leisure, and they become emotional.
okay.
They start oversleeping. If they are in school, their performance also declines drastically. Those are some of the ways that you can know that a teenager is having some kind of mental disorder. Though, so also in men, is they get hooked into some. We have got they get into preoccupation by with thoughts of death, and you get preoccupied by feeling guilty
But maybe it's after being in the last phases
in the
of
last phases. Yeah,
depression.
yeah. But in mostly in men, when they get depressed, they most of them they get into drugs. They go and take. You see, someone is changing drastically the behaviors. Someone is getting drunk so much
So
that
who are mostly affected by depression? Is it men or women, the teens? Which ones have the highest percentage?
not true percentage, but women naturally they have got the ability of them presenting the emotions are just very high. You see that
I know.
they have the high affinity of showing off their emotions, and it's very easy to know that a lady is depressed. But for men, they usually keep for themselves, or they just say that kufa kikondoo ndio ungwana. So men don't present the signs of depression because they usually bear with the situation for long. But for women, it's very easy to notice when someone is depressed. Another thing is that women usually share their problems with their colleagues and all that.
But
Men,
but in sharing, the depression levels can
they go
reduce.
down.
But you men,
Yeah.
so this shows that men are greatly affected by the depression.
They are very pinned because according to statistics, by the way, by the World Health Organization, 400% men have got a percentage of 400% of committing suicide as a result of depression because they don't share their problems they are facing with the other people, and they may not get advice or psychological advice to counter this problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What of the phases? How do the symptoms start like? I mean, for you to reach this stage of the feelings of you want to commit suicide, what will you have passed through in order for you to be in that the last phases?
You start from these basic things like you let's say you have lost your job, you have got nothing. Like during this corona period, people have lost their jobs, they have been retrenched, they have been laid off, their businesses have crashed down. So someone is like mentally disturbed, stressed. The first the, some of the early signs of this thing, someone the eating habits becomes unpredictable. They also become the sleepless nights. They don't have get sleep as they used to have before. Those are the
Sure.
early signs of depression, and the
Uh,
advance is up to the levels like where someone has committed suicide and all that.
sure.
Yeah.
What does madness
Mm.
has to do with depression? Do mad people, for instance, you may see a person who was just, I mean, after completion of studies, somebody was just bright and the best person. Then after some time, you realize the person became mad.
You know,
And after close follow-up, you find that maybe it was due to depression. So what does depression has to do with madness?
that one is the end result of this thing. Like someone has been battling with a lot of stress, a lot of depression, so it is an end result. Like the way you hear someone has committed suicide, it is an end result. See now, it is that now the climax of all these things because someone can maybe they become mentally unstable, they become insane, or they
Sure.
may commit suicide, they may
Yeah.
get hooked into drugs and some other horrible behavior.
Hmm.
Yes.
And so, what are the solutions, or what can you tell the young teens, the men and females, towards curbing this menace, or rather disorder?
Yeah, my advice to the, let's say, in the young people, we have said that it is very hard to notice that young people are undergoing depression moments. So it is for the guardian, it's for the parent, it's for the relatives to notice, to monitor the behavior of these teenagers very closely, and to monitor the progress, see whether they are depressed or not, and if someone notices that this person has changed, they can take the necessary measures like putting them on some counseling sessions and all that.
Exactly.
That is, counseling is one of the most remedies to depression. And when someone has been earlier diagnosed that they are in depression, it is very easy for them to be dehooked from this kind of talons of depression.
But you know that people are reluctant to attend these guidance and counseling centers. So how will it be possible? Because you have said for men,
Yeah.
it takes quite a long time
Kabisa.
for them to say whatever is paining them. So what is the best solution to them? Because maybe to counselors, you may advise them to go there, but after all, they won't attend.
For men like me, I just advise them. Let's just, by the way, it's good that we be opening up during when we have got problems in our life, because so that we can get the best remedy. Because you find that someone has a problem in them that is prolonging, we are getting them into depression, and they're keeping it to themselves. They're not sharing it with their friends and their family or their spouse. So the best way is to share your problems so that they can get the best remedy, the best solution to the problem they are facing, so that they may not be getting to the bad levels or vitriolic levels of getting depression.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And are there certain tools which you can use in reducing these levels of depression? For instance, if you feel like you're stressed out, are there some types of foods which
The,
can?
it's not about diet mostly, but because depression is something that is the mentally kind of stuff. It's a psychological kind of problem.
Yeah, but I think there are those which can decline the levels.
I'm not very quite sure about this because I'm no authority in this one, but according to the research that has been, it's a mostly this one is a mostly mental kind of disorder. So if you deal with the mind first, get the counseling sessions, and you follow these ones properly, it becomes it's a great milestone in combating this disorder.
Okay.
Mm.
Thank you so much for tackling on what depression, the different types, and the amicable solutions which you can do. Like for men, you say that they should open up.
Yeah.
So those are the possible solutions which you can use in order to curb this disorder of depression. Thank you so much for viewing and joining our conversation.